fan. Like, look at this. I mean, like, look at this draft though. Like, after like those first 4 picks, right? Like, we hit on the first 4. Waller out. Marquise Brown ain't shit. Dalvin Cook ain't shit. Kamara, like we were patient. Bateman. Juju.
Gallup Mills. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I remember we did get Hubbard.
Michael Carter.
MVS.
Damn, T. Marshall, Justin Rock. Bruh, all the receivers.
We didn't even get Puka? We didn't even get Puka on that team? No. How did we not get Puka on that team? Man, I was slipping. Oh, because that's a team I ain't pay attention. My dumb ass.
Probably because we took Justin Ross.
Probably.
Because I think
that was early, though.
Puka wasn't even drafted in this draft.
Yeah.
So he was on waivers.
Somebody picked up Puka on waivers on us.
We could have picked him. You know, I should have paid attention.
We didn't even get Kyron in this team.
Nope.
Like, this is not
we ended up getting him, though. We ended up getting him on waivers.
I don't think we got him.
No. I like he's in our starting lineup now. Okay. So Kyron.
We did get him.
Yeah.
Good shit.
Man, yeah, the Puka Kyron thing. I remember like before week 1 saying, make sure.
Oh, we got Parker. And we got Pierce.
Yeah,
we got receivers.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what happens.
We got to start Pierce.
And we got Green Bay. Oh, we got some options.
How nice is the sun today? We don't need permission to play. Let's go, let's just get away. Don't keep me waiting. No doubt we'll be working great. We haven't met by mistake. Your eyes, they be showing faith. So don't keep me waiting.
Welcome to First and 15, the only podcast that's trying to get you paid. I'm here with 2-time FFPC champion AB. Alongside him is my guy, Dio the Machine. Guys, I want to start off talking about probably the biggest news this past week, which is Trevor Lawrence injury. We don't know how much time he's going to miss.
Not bigger than Tank. I'm just playing.
Come on. I'm just playing. We don't know how much time Trevor is going to miss. Or if he's going to miss time. I'm pretty sure he's going to miss some time with that high ankle sprain, but we don't know as of right now if he's going to miss any time. It looks like Christian Kirk just had surgery, so he's definitely going to miss time. Mm-hmm. What does this mean for the rest of the Jaguar pieces, specifically Calvin Ridley, Evan Ingram, and do we feel like someone is going to fill that Christian Kirk role? And if so, who do you think is going to fill that role?
Man, I'm just going to pass this one right to my man Dayo. Right to my man Dayo, who was on this guy from the get-go.
Yeah, we talked about it pre-show, but he's alluding to Parker Washington.
Yeah.
And everybody kind of knows who he is now. He's the guy that took over that Christian Kirk role Monday night in the game against the Bengals. Interesting, he's a rookie. I forget what school he went to. Was it Penn State? Something like that. Regardless, he went to high school out here in Houston. Mm-hmm. He actually went to high school not too far from where I live. So I knew about him.
Penn
especially
State.
Yeah, Penn State. Okay, yeah, Penn State. So especially playing Dynasty, you're familiar with these players. The only problem before was he just had a lot of guys in front of him on the depth chart to overcome for him to be fantasy relevant this year. With that being said, with Christian Kirk gone and the way they utilized Parker this past game, it looks like he's going to be in that Christian Kirk role. And that Christian Kirk role can be very valuable with the way the Jaguars use it. And like I was telling these guys before we started the show, personally, from my, from what I've watched with Parker Washington in the past, I think he's more of a yards after catch type player. Like he's not so much a PPR guy like, Hunter Henry or a deep threat or anything like that. I think his best attribute is getting the ball in his hands and letting him do something with it, which is something we really didn't see too much of on Monday, which is kind of cool because that lets us know that there's still more meat to the bone. There's still value there that hasn't been showcased. So me personally, I'm trying to pick him up everywhere. I was telling these guys, in my dynasty leagues, the waivers run around noon our time, so it kind of always gives me a kind of a forecast of the way FFPC high stakes waivers are going to run. Yeah. And in all my dynasty leagues, Parker Washington was like the number one ad. Yeah. And people were like spending like pretty much all their fab. With it being the end of the year, there's no point in really hoarding that fab money. So I guess I'm not sneaky in targeting him because I am targeting him pretty much all my leagues. Because it's just one of those things where this late season run, he can have a magical last 5 games of the season. Yeah. Again, Christian Kirk is not coming back until maybe the end of the playoffs if they get that far, if they get past my Texans. But, He's just one of those players where you pick him up, see how he does. He can give you that high ceiling. Of course, he can be a dud, but we'll just see what happens there.
Yeah, but why not Zay Jones in this case? I mean, we've seen him do it before.
True.
We've seen him put up big numbers just last season. He's been a bit banged up. Why can't he come in and fill in that role? It seems like he already knows the offense. So why not Zay?
I mean, personally, and I'll let you talk if you want to talk, but for me personally, and I really kind of paid attention to the way that the team changed their offensive makeup after the Christian Kirk injury.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like they kept Zay in the same role.
Yeah.
It's not a thing where once Christian Kirk was gone, they elevated Zay and started giving more targets. The same thing with Ridley. It didn't seem to me like they started to force feed Ridley the ball. It just seemed to me where everybody played their same role and Parker just took over the Christian Kirk spot. And with all that being said, Zay hasn't really done much this season.
Mm-hmm.
He's been injured for a lot of the season, had these knick-knack injuries, going to practice questionable, going to games questionable, and then not playing. In the games he has played, he hasn't really done much. I think this season the biggest thing I've taken away from Zay Jones being active or not is whether I want to play Ridley, because I know the thing that's going around Twitter is every time Zay Jones plays, he opens it up for Ridley. So Ridley has a good game. When Zay Jones is out, Ridley struggles. So that's really the only reason I've been paying attention to Zay Jones. But he hasn't really just shown anything this year. Last year he was great for me, which is why I had him in so many teams this year. But haven't really seen that this year. So I don't really think he's going to get that role. Yeah. I don't know how you see it, Abby.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. So I think it's twofold. Obviously, Christian Kirk being out opened the door for Parker Robinson and from Washington. Sorry. And from what I saw Monday night, dude looked explosive. I mean, like very, very explosive. He just kind of had that. Not that he's like Tank Dell type of player, but had that Tank Dell type explosiveness where they just look different on tape. It didn't really take much for me to be able to see that. And then you just envisioned him in the Christian Kirk role. My initial thought was, damn, he better than Christian Kirk. I'm saying that kind of half joking, but I mean, he looks pretty damn good. And so, obviously that opens the door. The second part of this is that we haven't really seen receivers in this offense just dominate and bogart targets throughout the season. Ingram, I think still leads them in targets to date. Calvin Ridley's kind of been up and down. You alluded to the correlation between Zay Jones being active and playing and whatnot. But in my mind, I think this is a scheme-dependent offense. I think this is an offense, especially now, getting to my second point, you got a backup quarterback coming in. This is a scheme offense where I'm sure Peterson wants them to run the play. Go to the first read, go to the second read, and if not, you're probably throwing the ball away. Like, this is not really like, let me see who's open. Let me drive back and see what the defense is giving me. And so, in my mind, like, that leaves things, that leaves the potential for there to be a number of schemed opportunities from Parker Washington. And apparently he was injured to date, or else I think we probably would have seen more of him.
He was injured.
So I think that's a little bit of note too as well.
One thing, and you mentioned it, I forgot. I mentioned it earlier to y'all, but not on the show. One thing I forgot to mention is the fact that with Parker Washington being a backup, and then C.J. Beathard coming in now and most likely starting a couple games. They probably have a report from practice reps. They were on the field together with the second team, working together, knowing, the timing that they like and all that jazz. So it might work out perfectly for Parker Washington as far as having that, rapport with C.J. Beathard.
And I think we just also see a lot less of those more complicated throws that we were seeing from Trevor Lawrence at times, like the back shoulder fades, some of the go routes. Like, I'm sure they'll like push the ball down the field a little bit, but you got to anticipate that Doug Peterson is going to be looking at this and saying, okay, I got my backup quarterback in. Let's, let's for the most part be, conservative. Let's not be too aggressive. Let me like really dive into the playbook and try to get him some well-schemed plays drawn up, and let's get the hand to the playmakers. And that's, just like with anyone else, like his opportunity can grow from others being injured. Zay Jones has had issues, and if someone else goes down, it's going to be an issue. The last thing I want to say about the Jaguars is like we saw Evan Ingram explode down the stretch last year, and yesterday I think was his first like really like explosive. Where he just put up 20+ point game throughout the season. I think it was his first first
He
time
said
scoring
his
a
first
touchdown.
like 15 games.
Yeah.
Or something
Exactly,
like that.
exactly.
Crazy streak.
So we could, I think he definitely sees some potential benefit because the way they use Evan
100%.
Ingram is just a lot of easy like bubble screens, slants. Like, they get him the ball or try to get him the ball in space. A lot of low A-dot throws, and they just allow his athleticism to hit the field.
You saw that in overtime too. I think it's crazy because that whole game was a great game. A lot of ups and downs.
Of course, you see it as a great game.
It was a great game for me. We can talk about that later. But shout out to Jake Browner, man. He came through for you, boy. Because last week when I was on the pod, man, I felt like I was talking reckless for a second, but it happened. The whole game played out a certain way, and it was cool to watch. But I think once overtime hit, it really showed us what the teams want to do when their backs are against the wall and what they feel most comfortable with. And what we saw was a bunch of targets to Evan Ingram for the Jaguars, and for the Bengals, a bunch of targets to Jamar Chase. That's what we saw in that short overtime span. So for both those players, Ingram, and I know we're not talking about the Bengals, but Jamar Chase, I think that is like wheels up for both those players, especially now we're going to the stretch run for the high stakes players, tournament, and for the the home league players, the playoffs about to start. I think those two players you should be very excited about.
Let's talk about players who we've been excited about all season. There's another player, hometown team, Tank Dell, is out for the season. We were extremely excited about Tank.
Go Cougs, U of H.
Yeah, fellow Coug as well. Who's going to, take up those targets? Do we see Nico getting an uptick in targets? Do we think that Noah Brown is going to chime in? What about somebody like Mechie, who hasn't been really a factor, who could also stretch the field as well?
See, to me, this is almost the opposite of the, schemed offense, the, go through your first and second reads, the, getting guys open on screens. To me, this is C.J. Stroud dropping back and seeing what the defense is giving him. This is C.J. Stroud,
it's
making
all
plays.
About C.J. Stroud.
So, we've seen that, I don't necessarily know that he just locks in on one guy. I think he sees a mismatch and he targets it. I think he does his homework and he studies and he looks at the defense and he calls his guys the night before and says, hey, this is a matchup I think we can exploit. I think that's why we've seen Dalton Schultz go off. I think that's why we've seen Tank Dell go off. That's why we've seen Noah Brown go off.
The perfect example of that is, going into the season, nobody really thought much of Noah Brown. Remember before we even started, I was telling y'all, Noah Brown looked like he's going to be the starter.
Yeah.
But, nobody really cared. He really wouldn't do much. He got injured at the first game of the season, so whatever, we kind of forgot about him. But remember that one game 3 weeks ago where Noah Brown had over 150 yards?
Crazy. Yeah.
Went crazy. And it just kind of came out of nowhere. But if you watch the Texans and you just watched that game specifically, what you really noticed was it was a bunch of third downs, and it was he found Noah Brown on these third. It's almost like he saw something in the defense that he exploited, and he just kept attacking it with Noah Brown. So it wasn't a thing where he just felt like, okay, Noah Brown, this game is my best receiver, or this is the game where we're gonna give Noah Brown a whole bunch of targets. It was more so the defense was giving Noah Brown those opportunities, and C.J. Stroud was just taking advantage of it. So the same thing Abby's saying, and I totally agree. I think this offense with the Texans is more so all about what C.J. Stroud wants to do. If he finds a weakness in the defense or a certain target that he feels like he can have success with, he's going to keep attacking it. And honestly, it's one of those things where we really don't know it until it starts to play out. Now with that being said, I do think now John Mechie is going to play more snaps because up to this point it's kind of felt like they've kind of had the leash on him a little bit. They've been playing him, so he's gotten snaps, but they haven't really given him the full course of a game. Now they might be forced to. Maybe not, though, because for a long time, the Texans had not had their full arsenal of receivers. There was a game Tank missed this season. He had a concussion. Again, Noah Brown missed. He was on IR. Robert Woods missed a couple games. Nico missed a game. So every game, it's like we always had one or two receivers out. So it might be a thing where they're like, business as usual. We're just down Tank. We'll do what we were doing before. And in that instance, John Mechie really wasn't doing much.
Right.
But now I think it's time, especially as a Texans fan, him being a second-round pick last year, we need to see a return. We need to see a return on that investment. And in reality, I was listening to local radio yesterday. John Mechie is the only skill player the Texans have drafted in the first 2 rounds in the last 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Like no other skill player they've drafted.
Yeah.
So if you do that, you're basically telling me you think this guy is a player. Mm-hmm. So let's see him be a player. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So let's stick to injuries for a second. Brian Robinson is banged up a little bit for the Commanders.
Hamstring, yep.
And so, is it Chris Rodriguez time? I know you've been talking about.
I got to.
I know you've been talking about.
My time has come. Yes, I hope so because even watching the game, they played Antonio Gibson a lot more obviously because he was the incumbent or the replacement for B-Rob. But Rodriguez was getting a lot of work.
Yeah,
and he looked solid. I mean, he doesn't have this blazing speed or shiftiness. He's just one of those workhorse. Get the ball, go forward, and get those yards and fall forward type player.
but that seems like what Brian Robinson was. So.
Exactly. So it's almost like he's the perfect replacement.
That's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, to me, Brian Robinson, he really isn't all that. He's not elite. He's replaceable essentially.
Yeah.
So I could easily see them switching out B-Rob for Chris Rodriguez. The problem is that Chris Rodriguez, I don't know how much they're going to involve him in the passing game.
That's the problem. Yeah.
B-Rob, they at least felt comfortable him being in the second year and being able to kind of pass block. I believe anyway. Yeah. It seemed like they at least trusted him with some of that role.
Start to get some passes out.
No, he's getting a lot of passes.
He's been involved.
He's probably one of the best value picks in fantasy this year.
Yeah, but my issue specifically with Chris Rodriguez as far as picking him up for the foreseeable future is his upcoming schedule.
Yeah.
So they play the Rams, which is not the easiest matchup, but then they play the Jets. You can kind of talk, say what you want about their run defense. I think for this particular team, I'm not seeing, Washington just, dominating the line of scrimmage, and then they, finish out San Francisco. So it's not the easiest matchup. So I just be careful about who I'm dropping for him and how much fab I'm spending on him.
I will say though that I will say this though, he is now officially one injury away, and we know Antonio Gibson has a history of having these soft injury problems.
Facts.
So he could be a guy where you
901.
Abby's been doing his waivers. The deadline just crossed, so that's why he's been kind of
in the middle of the show.
But I mean, we've seen Antonio Gibson be injured so many times, and we can easily see Rodriguez, who right now you probably don't have to spend much to acquire him in fab. He could be somebody that can win you these last 2 games. Don't forget Rex. What's his name? Rex Burkhead. 2 years ago for the Texans had that crazy game in the tournament. That stuff counts, So don't totally ignore it. If you have the space and if your running back room is not the strongest, don't be afraid to toss a few coins out there and add Chris Rodriguez to your roster.
Let's stick to the Commanders for a second because Curtis Samuel is sneakily having a really good season.
Oh, this is my podcast.
This is your
podcast right now.
Really is. This is a dial episode. He's sneakily having a really good season.
Yes, sir.
I mean, only 10.5 points, but I say only. That's not bad for a down game. 19 points before that. He did go through quite of a slump. But, I mean, he has, an 18.2 game, an 18.5 game, a 4. I mean, he's putting up some decent fantasy games.
When healthy, he has been probably their best fantasy wide receiver. Part of it's just because of one, maybe it's only 1 or 2 plays, but they involve him in the run game a little bit in the rounds. They get him the ball around the line of scrimmage, easy low dart route. And then specifically this team, they're always in negative game scripts. So he's like the perfect wide receiver for this garbage time where in a PPR league where he can just eat up 3 to 4 catches for 30, 40 yards in the fourth quarter alone. So
he's like their Debo almost, right? It's almost like they're using him as their Debo.
Because he is in the backfield just like Debo. Has Debo been in the backfield much this season? I don't think
Not
so.
as much as years
Red
past.
zone, they've been using him. Red zone, they have been using him. Yeah. They've been using him in the red zones, and that's really all I care about. Get him in, get him involved in there in the red zone.
So the thing with Curtis Samuel, I mean, for our old loyal listeners, I think literally our very second episode we've ever recorded was the Curtis Samuel, Terry Mack.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Who was the 1A, 1B, So, but that same type of dialogue, the way they're using both those receivers now, T-Mac is the downfield threat. He's getting the long targets, a bunch of air yards. He made a joke this last week. You know, he didn't do anything. He had 0, but he made a joke talking about he ran a lot of cardio because how many deep routes he was having to run. But with the way their offense is being run now, and with Howell not having the strongest arm to throw it deep, this type of offense suits Curtis Samuel much better than it suits Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in reality, honestly, I think we should be looking at it as Curtis Samuel is the number one wide receiver for this team. Because he's the one where at any type of game script, if it's close, if they're down, if they're up, he most likely can get targets, or get the ball in his hands. And like we said, he's one of those type of players like Debo, just get the ball in his hands, he can make something happen. While T-Mac, if he doesn't connect on those deep passes, just like the last game, there's not really much there left of value, And I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy to me because we had this discussion beginning this season how I was high on T-Mac over Joe Mixon. And I made a bet with one of our listeners who he's literally sending a tweet every 2 weeks, updating me like, hey, this is where we are. Yeah, this is where we are. But it's crazy because I assumed that with Eric Bieniemy coming in and being the offensive coordinator and opening up that offense and kind of bringing those Kansas City Chiefs type, whatever play styles to Washington, that would give T-Mac more of an opportunity to blossom or to do more.
But in essence, he did. At least the most recent Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, he definitely
because
brought it over.
Because basically, what are they doing? They like getting everybody involved.
Yeah, he brought it over, but that's the point I was going to make. He brought it over, but he didn't bring it over with my mindset of this is going to be the Tyreek Hill. He brought it over more so of the MVS.
Yeah.
So I didn't want the MVS. I wanted Tyreek Hill. I want the Juju. Yeah, so that's my bad.
Is Logan Thomas, is he rosterable?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Y'all are still rostering
tight end premium. Tight end premium,
No,
absolutely. You can't drop him.
He burned me the other day. I mean, a few weeks ago, he burned me.
Unless you're like a handful of tight ends, you're going to have down weeks. And then even in those handful of tight ends, if your name isn't like TJ Hawkinson and Travis Kelce.
But
even Laporta had a couple of weeks where he was just kind of down. Like, you're going to have down games. So Logan Thomas was like literally not drafted at all. He's at break glass.
And Logan Thomas, I think a couple weeks ago, he had a pretty good game.
Yeah,
a few weeks ago.
Man, I'm forever hold Logan down.
I mean, tight end is such a difficult position, though, right? It's like once you get through the ones that are solid, like, okay, so you have these peak tight ends. You have this slow decline of solid tight ends. But then after the solid tight ends, it is a deep fall.
Yeah.
And you start rostering like Hudson.
Tyler Conklin,
you start rostering players where when you're watching the game, you're just happy if they get a target. Like, hey, I got a catch.
Yeah,
like he's open. So
he's open in the flat.
Yeah, you can't draw Logan Thomas because we've seen Sam Howell just pepper Logan Thomas with targets.
What I would do is I would look at his targets. I wouldn't look at like his fantasy production. Yeah. I would look at how many targets, and he's getting targets. Any tight end is getting like 5+ targets a game, I'm not dropping.
And keep in mind, like we were talking about, me and Abby were talking about Brevin Jordan and Hunter Henry before we started the show. And my thing right now is I just want the offense that's passing the ball a lot. Like, at the end of the day, like I can't guess exactly how the targets are going to be spread out. But if you're passing it a lot, then that just increases my chance of my guy getting the ball. And the Commanders, before last week, they led the league in passing yards. So, I mean, I want a guy on that type of offense. Of course, T-Mac is not doing it for me. But, again, if I'm looking at the other tight ends, at least I know this tight end is on a passing offense compared to, all these other bums.
So I want to play a game right quick. I want to call it benchable
Squid Games.
right.
Hey, by the way, Squid Games.
That last episode dropped tonight. I think.
No spoilers.
I'm saying I haven't watched it yet. I'm gonna watch it tonight.
The last episode.
The last episode.
How many episodes are in the season?
We don't know.
10, right?
It's the first season. But I
want to know is how can I become a contestant? That's what I
really do want to sign up. Like viewers, let us know where we can sign to be on Squid Game season 2. Because I can win all them things.
Y'all wouldn't make it.
I'll even give you a little bit of money.
I'm watching episode 1 and I'm like, there is no way. For $4.5 million, there's no way. I don't want to give away too much of the show, but somebody, like, How did
Everybody
somebody?
knows
How many?
red light, green light.
No, but they still got.
How do you lose a red light, green light?
Yeah,
Like, how do you lose?
Yeah,
at
you're a
red
grown
light,
man.
green
losing
light.
at red
You a
light, green
grown
light.
ass man. There's a 70-year-old female. No disrespect, athlete. I'm sure she I'm sure
She made it.
I'm sure she power walked like a champ.
Yeah.
She was able to make it. There's no way that
You know
I
what
would.
pissed me off? The game where they gotta like cut the cookie.
Oh yeah.
And like people be cracking their cookie.
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, like be patient.
I know you saw this. I know you saw
Yeah,
this
lick
show.
the damn cookie. And be patient. Just
Lick the cookie.
take your time.
Like an old dude says, spit on the cookie.
Spit on the cookie.
Spit on the cookie.
Spit on that
Oh,
cookie.
man. But let's play benchable or nah.
Yeah.
All right. Cooper Kupp. Will you bench Cooper Kupp?
Hell, yeah.
Or does he
I've
have to
been
stay there?
benching him.
You've benched Cooper Kupp
I've been
this
benching
season.
Cooper Kupp for like the last 4. Puka is the number 1 wide receiver on that team.
I know,
He's
but
the
the thing
number
is,
1 wide
Cooper
receiver.
Kupp could go off at any time.
No,
Do you want-
no. Cooper Kupp in 2022 could go off at any time. If you have watched Cooper Kupp play, I have not seen the explosiveness from Cooper Kupp. I've not seen the usage from Cooper Kupp.
It's the
I've not seen
usage
the
that's the problem.
targets to Cooper Kupp.
it's the
Like
usage.
I literally watched him from day one, and I was like, okay, make sure I start Puka every single week and just live with it. But I was starting Puka ahead of Cooper Kupp from like day one since when he's come back because I just haven't seen the usage there.
Yeah.
It looks like they want to give him the ball, but it just looks like he's
I don't even
done.
know about that. I don't even think they want like in the
As a
years
number
past. But in the year past, man, we used to watch the Rams. They used to like every pass play, the target is going to Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
It's like Stafford was just locking in on Kupp and just throwing in the ball. Now it's almost where Stafford's like, who's open? Tutu Atwell, you open? Here you go. Here's the ball.
Puka.
You open? Here's the
it's
ball.
more
Tutu is
Puka.
kind of taking a dip, though.
Kyron Williams, you open? Here's the ball. Tyler Higbee had 2 touchdowns a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
You open, here's the ball. Like, they're spreading it way too much, and I don't like that because, I mean, what's Cooper Kupp's greatest skill set? He's not the fastest. He's not the biggest.
Great
He's
route
not the
running.
shiftiest.
That's the issue. The ankle injuries
Yeah.
have gotten to him. The hamstring injuries have gotten to him. He's not been able to run his routes as script. He just looks different to me. I mean, I don't know. I can't put it
To
in the
answer
numbers.
your question,
He just
for
looks
me,
different.
If I had better options, I would want to sit Kupp. It's very, I mean,
How many
most
better
likely-
options are there?
Yeah,
There's a
most
lot of better
likely-
options. There's a lot of better options. There have been
If
so
you
many
drafted
running backs.
Cooper Kupp, then you drafted him. What most likely?
Yeah, and I set his ass
first
on the
round.
bench. I do not care. And I have playoff teams with Cooper Kupp.
Well,
and
I
he's
think
on
he
the
took a
bench.
dip towards the end of the draft season to where he got pretty far. I mean, like
Actually,
he
yeah.
started
Let me
back
correct
of
it.
the
That's when most of my Cooper Kupp teams are like, I took it. I was like, let me take a
Back
stab
of
in
the
the fourth,
first
fifth.
or the early second, which is the same thing. The back. Of the
No,
first.
no, he was
getting
like in the
to
fourth or fifth round.
Fourth or fifth round.
Oh, really?
after a while,
Yeah.
Yeah, because remember he.
Oh, because he had the injury,
right?
real
yeah,
injury. Okay,
yeah.
I got you.
What about Brees Hall? Brees Hall, like, are you willing to bench Brees Hall?
Brees Hall is a lot harder. I mean, I got to have like a lot of great options. I think to be fair, I only have one share of Brees Hall, and I do have a lot of options on that team. But most weeks, like I'd probably say 90% of the weeks, he is out there starting because he is so involved in the passing game, and the Jets are just so bad that I know he's going to get me at least 3 to 4 carries a game, and then he just has the explosiveness to be able to take it to the house. So he's not a guy that I want to sit.
Yeah.
Me, I don't have any Brees Hall at all.
Me
I
either.
totally avoided him this draft season, but I might try to bench him because the offense is just so stagnant, and the only way it seems like he can score is if he breaks off a long one. Now, when he does break it off, it ends up being a great fantasy output, so you're happy. But I mean, and again, I don't have him, so I haven't really been paying attention to his fantasy output. But I haven't seen highlights of him doing much.
Yeah.
So if I was to look at his numbers, I'm assuming he has maybe somewhere between like 7 and 12 points a game right now, which is
Give or take. Yeah. I mean, like, he only has one game where I guess he has a 20. Well, no, he has a 28-point game. He has a 20 game. 21.
when was those? Those are early in the season, though, right?
They were kind of early.
That's
in
what
the
I'm saying. I'm
season.
talking about recently.
Week 11, he had 18 points.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah.
What did he do last 2 weeks?
Last 2 weeks, 10.5 and 11.9.
Okay, so yeah,
He's got like a safe floor.
Yeah, he has a floor because they keep using him, It's
And
just
because
that
he
you don't
catches a
get
lot of
much out him.
Passes, yeah.
They've been very, very conservative. So they they throw him screens.
So I guess he's the especially with the running back landscape, you probably can't bench him.
He's
Also,
almost exclusively getting it from the passing game.
Yeah.
I mean, like, just looking at it in week 6 catches, 29 yards.
Oh, he got 6 catches?
And
Week
how many
12, 7 catches,
Yeah.
24
Oh, wow.
yards.
That's what he's hard to bench. That's what I'm saying. He's a nice
Okay.
floor. And some of his most recent matchups have not been the greatest matchups. Atlanta's tough. They're not just tough because they I'm starting to care less about, we can't run in between the tackles because they have a tough D-line. And I'm starting to care more about, this defense really limits running backs because they are literally making sure that their running backs do not catch passes out in the flats. You know who does that? The Chicago Bears. I hate starting running backs against the Chicago Bears. Not because you can't just pick up 70, 80 yards on the ground, but because they have linebackers that can cover running backs.
Edwards?
Yes, dude, watching your running back play against the Chicago Bears is the most frustrating thing in the world because you just give him that flat. It's like a 2-yard. It's a 2-yard kick. Just give it to him.
Who the Bears playing this week?
Let's
Santo.
see.
We were talking about kickers earlier. Who's Santo playing this week? You don't
The
remember?
Detroit Lions.
Lions?
But the Lions got such an elite offensive line that they're gonna be able to,
Yeah.
Well, we're about to test your theory out this week.
Well,
For
Jamar,
sure, for sure.
I mean, if I got Gibbs, that's a different story because he runs
D-Mon.
routes.
I want to see how D-Mon does, though.
Oh yeah.
Let's see how D-Mon does.
Well, let's stick with the Jets for a second. Are you benching Garrett Wilson?
No.
I'm not.
What?
Actually, let me take that back because I do have a decent amount of shares of Garrett Wilson, and I have benched him in certain lineups. It just kind of depends, and sometimes I'm just like, man, I don't know. Let me bench a few shares just in case.
Yeah.
Or let me just start a few
I
shares
see
just in
Garrett
case.
Wilson the same way I was seeing Jamar Chase before this past Monday night game, where, he might not have as high of a ceiling as he had prior to the season that I thought, but he's still their best weapon in the passing game, and I expect them to be losing pretty much every game here on out. So when they're throwing the ball to play catch up, they have to keep throwing it to Garrett Wilson.
Yeah. And Zach Wilson's now the starter, and as much as Zach Wilson has just not been good of late,
He does lock in.
he does like Garrett Wilson, and that's all I
What's
care
Garrett
about.
Wilson's numbers been lately?
He's been
hasn't been bad. He
averaging
hasn't been
this
bad.
season. He's averaging
That's
13.1
pretty
points a
good.
game.
Yeah.
Just
For worst case scenario, because I don't think it can get much worse.
can't get
Tim
much
Boyle
worse.
as his quarterback.
Yeah.
Have y'all looked at Tim Boyle's
Tim
numbers
Boyle
from
is-
college?
Tim Boyle is
There's
garbage.
no reason Tim Boyle should be in the NFL.
Yeah.
Jets deserve everything that they got.
Yeah.
What was that about?
I have no clue.
He has more interceptions in college than he has touchdowns.
Jets deserve everything that they got.
What the fuck? And he just started 2 NFL games.
Oh
Man, come on, man.
This man got tapes on somebody. He got something.
Exactly.
oh, you gonna
He
start me
knows
this
some
week.
kind of body's buried or something
Yeah.
right now because that's ridiculous. And he didn't look good when he played.
Yeah.
So
Not
what
at
was the
all.
Jets
Not at
thinking
all. Not at
when
all.
they decided to name him the starter?
Oh man. One last player, Austin Eckler. Hasn't been the same. Is going on a dip.
I wanted to ask you
Are you
about
willing to
him today,
bench
too.
Austin Eckler?
I have 0 shares of Austin Eckler. I was
But
very
that-
adamant.
all right.
I was
If you
very
had a
adamant.
shit.
That's hard to say because it depends on who I got on my team. This is the thing this year with running backs. At least the way I drafted running backs is I just didn't take them early, so I started taking a lot of stabs late, and damn near every running back late has some type of value, because there's so many running back by committees. That's what I kept
Yeah.
saying. So and then we were we loved A-Chain. We absolutely love Kyron. We picked up, Fords. There's just so many running backs that just has so much value
This is
that
definitely the season, yeah.
So the way that I play the running backs is just okay, do I got stud wide receivers? Okay, they locked in because they can just really explode for 20, 30 point plus games. And then I look at my running backs. Okay, who just has a potential smash matchup? And I just leave it at that. But when it comes to Eckler, it just depends on the matchup. And honestly, I'd probably, be lying to myself if I would say that I would bench him more weeks than not, or even set. He's probably in my lineup probably 80% of the time. It's hard to bench Austin Eckler
That's
because
still kind
of
of
his
low
involvement
considering where
in his
you
run
would have
game.
drafted Austin Eckler. That's still kind of low,
Yeah.
right? If you're benching him, if you're playing him 80, I have a hard time seeing a game outside of bye weeks that I would.
Yeah. So I had Garrett Wilson ahead of Austin Eckler, and so I basically would treat him the same way.
That's crazy. Abby was just dropping some gems right there. I hope y'all were paying attention if y'all weren't going on. He was pretty much telling you how to set your lineup, so that's pretty good. 'Cause, one thing I feel like a fantasy we lack is how to manage your roster in season and how to know who to play and why to play them. That's a skill set that I don't think it's easy to really explain, but I think that's where the true good fantasy players excel.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's one of those things where you got to try to master it. And once you master it, man, it starts becoming easy.
And start playing DFS.
Oh, yeah.
DFS will open your mind up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's how I make my starting decision.
Can I confess to something real quick?
Yeah.
I've been kind of using DFS to kind of help me with my start sits. So I just bank on Vegas. So whoever has the highest number, it means that Vegas thinks that they're going to have the better game. Yeah. So if I have two running backs that I think that are really close, so I think I had Khalil Herbert or Madison, and I didn't know who I wanted to start last week. So I just went to I just went to DraftKings, like who's more expensive on DraftKings, and I just started at that running back, and that's how
that's
I
some Dorsey stuff.
Yeah,
right there.
I mean, I don't know if I'm that relying on it, but like I do look at it.
If it's that close, right? Like it's kind of a close.
Dorsey would look at more Vegas totals though.
I look at Vegas totals too.
Vegas totals, he has the higher Vegas.
Yeah, I think it's all helpful. Yeah, it's all helpful.
I use Vegas totals to help, like actually set my DFS lineups. So like if I'm doing like a showdown or something like that, or like if I'm playing a Millie Maker, I'll look at like the games that are anticipated to be the most highest.
We got a budding DFS expert.
Oh yeah,
sitting to the left right now. Yeah.
Let's talk about Dallas for a second. Actually, I hate to talk about Dallas right now, but that defense is taking a hit. Are you guys willing to drop Dallas's defense?
I'm dropping Dallas defense. I mean, I don't feel good about
all those touchdowns.
I'm looking at their record coming up. Pull up their record. For me, and I'm speaking specifically, actually, just in general, because I'm looking at the tournament, and my approach to defense is, well, yes, the ideal scenario is that I have a really good defense that has a really good pass rush, that has ball hawk corners, that plays a really bad matchup, and a team that likes to throw the ball or is forced to throw the ball a lot. Mm-hmm. Like, that's my ideal. So, great defense against a really bad offense. Mm-hmm. But a great defense against a really good offense, I'm less inclined to play. I'd rather have a mediocre defense against a really bad offense. Mm-hmm. So when I'm looking at the waiver wire and I'm looking at ATL and I'm looking at the Colts and I'm looking at Houston and you already got Miami, which has been rostered.
ATL should be rostered too, though.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Give me all those defenses
Houston
over
should be too, but if
Dallas.
it's not, go get Houston.
Even Seattle. Like, Seattle's been slept on because they haven't been playing well. They were in the shootout with Dallas.
I'd be nervous about Seattle.
But Seattle has, looking at their schedule coming up, like I know one of the teams is Pittsburgh. I'm going to bank on Trubisky just being Trubisky. Yeah. And then when teams got to go to Seattle and play, to me, that like adds something. And just towards the end of the year, Seattle to me is just one of those teams that at just random times, like, their defense could show out for whatever reason. So just because I think of their scheme.
I'm a little nervous about that, but I definitely understand where you're coming from. My thing with Dallas is I'm not dropping Dallas. I have a lot of Dallas, and I have multiple defenses on my team, by the way. Mm-hmm. Here's my gem, I guess. Yeah. I'm not going into this tournament or playoffs with just one defense or even just two. I'm trying to have three. I even have some teams that got four.
Damn, four?
Like because
I can't find four roster.
I have, and I'll tell you why. Because it goes to what you were literally just saying, Chris. That DFS mindset. Yeah. Like, I want to go into every week saying, okay, who are all the defenses I can choose from? Let me pick the best defense out of these group of defenses I have.
And that wins weeks. Yes, it wins weeks.
Just that
defense
extra
and
point.
Kickers wins weeks. We hate it. We ignore it, but defense and kickers wins weeks.
So like last week on a lot of my teams, I had Atlanta and had Dallas. Mm-hmm. Atlanta was a team that the defense where I felt like was in a better spot. Mm-hmm. So it's like, let me play Atlanta. Now every other week wouldn't even consider Atlanta. Yeah. I would definitely play Dallas. Miami, my teams that have Miami, teams this week that have Green Bay, the Texans, like teams like that. It's like I'm putting them in like, okay, this is good for this week, but then next week I'm probably not going to need them. Yeah. So I don't want to marry myself because, and I guess I should have prefaced this by first saying this is more for the high stakes leagues where you no longer after a certain part of the season can pick up players. Mm-hmm. Specifically, what is this, week 14? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So week 14 in high stakes is the last week you can actually add players to your roster. So you have to add players knowing that for the rest of the season, this is all you have. Mm-hmm. So which is why I'm saying, like, I want to be able to have these defenses on my team where it's like when that week comes, I can decide whether I want to play them or not. So going back to what we were talking about with the Cowboys, their roster, I mean, their schedule is horrible right now. I think they're playing the Bills, they're playing the Eagles.
It's the Eagles this week, They have the Bills after that, Miami after that,
Dolphins, yeah.
Detroit after that.
All great offenses.
And then they finish with the Commanders.
But the Commanders don't count.
The Commanders don't count. That's
right.
So all great offenses. It is scary.
Great offenses with good O-lines, too.
But here's the thing, though. Y'all talked about defenses and about it doesn't matter how many points the other team is scoring. How many turnovers are they creating? How many touchdowns they're scoring? How many sacks they're getting? And that Dallas defensive line can create
But go back and look at Dallas against like really good teams and see what they've done from a scoring standpoint. I'm not saying that it can't happen, and I definitely like am in agreement with like, okay, I don't mind the idea of like they're just a really good defense that could wreak havoc in any given moment. Yeah. And so who knows in a tournament, you know, Josh Allen goes down and they get to play against their backup.
My second one. Y'all literally just made my 2 points. My first point was, what did you just say?
About like what makes
a
defense
My first point was in these high stakes leagues, the amount of points scored against is not as important as it is just being able to get a lot of sacks and turnovers, interceptions, fumble recovery, things like that. Because in FFPC specifically, once a team scores over 10 points for you, you no longer lose any more points in their defense. Right. So a team scoring 45 points and a team scoring 12 is going to equal the same amount of points as far as the defense points against. You know? But so that was my first point. The second point, what Abby was just saying was, we don't know what happened between now and the end of the season where injuries. I mean, we've seen all these injuries happen with these quarterbacks. We just talked about them playing the Bills. If Josh Allen got hurt this upcoming week and they now have to trot out Matt Barkley, everybody's probably playing the Cowboys defense against the Bills.
But this is the thing. But see, like it's a double-edged sword, or like there's a counterpoint to that. Is like we don't know what's going to happen.
We don't.
So the skilled players that we're dropping, they could end up becoming relevant. Or players on waivers, you know, Parker Washington, he could become relevant. So it's a fine balance.
I've been able to find enough roster spots because. And me and Abby were talking about this last week, I think. There's obviously a chance where a running back, like your seventh running back on your roster, can something happen this week and all of a sudden become a great fantasy asset and can win you the tournament. And, you know, if you don't have him on your roster because you thought you didn't need him, it could really suck. So, that's a risk I take. I mean, it's almost you pick your poison in this situation.
But I'm with you, though. Like, I've been, you know,
like I'm shedding a lot of
I've been shaving off the fat.
Yeah, I'm shedding a lot of
shaving off the
right
fat.
now.
And you know, one of the guys like even like a Chase Edmonds. So I like picked up a lot of Chase Edmonds because like okay, like he's a clear backup. And I like go through. Let me look at Tampa Bay's schedule. How have they really been running the ball? Do I see Chase Edmonds like you know being a goal line back?
Like is he going to share the workload with Keyshawn Vaughn?
Are they not going to bring somebody else in? Yeah. So then I was like, you know what? Like how valuable is Chase Edmonds? I did the same thing with Michael Carter. I was like. Yeah, I like the idea of Michael Carter initially. It was like, but let me go look at the schedule. I'm like, the schedule's not that. That's not that nice. Okay, if James Conner does go down, how much work is Michael Carter actually getting? You know, are they really not bringing anybody else? So I really had to kind of like think, okay, X, Y, and Z injury happens. Okay, we're excited that this is a guy, but what does that mean from a production standpoint? If it doesn't mean much. Let me get my defense. Let me get my backup quarterback. Let me go for Parker Washington.
There you go.
You know, and then even I mean, like really, like who like if an injury like takes place can like really propel me? Like, is there an outside chance this guy can propel me to a championship or put up a 20-point plus game?
By the way, I don't know if we mentioned it last week, but if we didn't, man, and if you still have the opportunity, man, Dearness Johnson. I think we didn't mention it last week.
Yeah.
Dearness Johnson, man. It ain't happened. And, I got a bad mindset every time I'm watching the Jaguars playing. ETN gets the ball, I'm like hoping he gets hurt. I know it's fucked up.
Man, that's terrible.
But I'm like, bro, just go there. Like, just go to the medical tent, have them check up on you for a second. Because I'm like, man,
he sent a text message out in the group chat. Damn. ETN ain't been to the medical tent not once.
Not once this game.
I'm like, keep hitting him in the ribs, man.
He ain't seen the medical tent not once.
But the thing is, Dearness Johnson gets that job, man, he could be a league winner.
Yeah.
I'm telling y'all. And they're even like pulling back with the amount of work ETN's even getting right now.
Yeah.
Now, it didn't equal much Dearness Johnson work last game. Matter of fact, they started giving Bigsby more work than he had been getting in the past. But, man, ETN goes down, man. I have a whole bunch of Dearness. That's real, right? So if y'all see ETN go down, just know, man, I'm like jumping for joy. I'm excited. Like I'm like, hell yeah. The time
we
is
do
now.
not co-sign.
To finish up with the Cowboys, I think you're right. I'm looking at all of the teams that they played, and I mean, they just feasted on bad teams.
Oh, yeah.
It's just bad teams.
So when they play,
that's the Cowboys in general. Oh,
Yeah,
we're going up
it
against
is.
a bad team. Let's dominate.
it is. Defense only had 3 points against the 49ers, 3 points against the Chargers, 3 points against Philly. But then when they played the Giants, they had 39 points. The Jets, they had 16. New England, 28. I mean, they're feasting on these bad teams.
I ain't gonna lie. I was looking at my teams because again, I have like 3-4 defenses. I don't know when I'm playing the Cowboys during this tournament.
During the stretch, yeah.
Like with the other options I have, like the Texans, they're playing the Titans twice. They're playing the Jets this week. They play another team that's kind of like mid. I like them a lot. So I'm looking like, when do I actually need the Cowboys? But I just want to keep them in my back pocket just in case. Just in case something happens because, like this week, the Steelers, and you know, the Patriots have been horrible all season, but not the Patriots. I mean, not the Steelers. The Packers. Packers playing DeVito, who he has not been that great. I mean, he's done a little bit, but before like the season started, we would have never thought the Packers were a great option for this week. But now they're playing that type of quarterback. Hell yeah!
I mean, I will say this though. Teams coming off buys worry me. Anytime a team comes off a bye, I just ignore
game plan a little bit.
Yeah, I just ignore what happened. And that has me worried. Like same thing with Love. Like Love has been playing great, and everyone's like, this is a great matchup against the Giants because of X, Y, and Z reasons. But that team is coming off a bye.
Do they think it's a good Love matchup this week?
Yeah. Everybody's been saying it's a good Love matchup.
What is the Giants' defensive weakness?
They don't have the greatest corners. They don't really. I mean, I really feel like their defensive coordinator does a good job most weeks.
Martindale,
yeah,
right?
Wayne Martindale. Like I feel like he does
Wink Martindale, whatever.
a good job most weeks, and they are oddly competitive in games that you just otherwise just
I know
like. I know
Thibodeau's been doing okay this season.
Yeah, so that just has me worried because I feel like he could potentially scheme up. Like he gets his guys up to play. But that's just a general rule for me. Like teams coming off defense, I like really take a focus and I reassess and I just don't assume that like, okay, this team was someone we could attack all week and then, they coming off a bye. Like things end up changing.
Yeah.
I don't know how much Green Bay have, but hopefully it don't come and bite me in the ass.
At the beginning of this season, you wouldn't have been able to convince me that Sam Howell, that Brock Purdy, and Jordan Love would have more fantasy football points than Lamar Jackson. You wouldn't have been able to.
More points than Lamar?
Than Lamar
Jackson.
Jackson.
What happened to Lamar?
Yes.
He had a bad stretch or something?
He just.
Lamar's been. It's been a series of unfortunate events. It's
really?
been. Yeah, it's just been like unluck. I mean, it's just been a lot of just unlucky, situations. His running backs are scoring all the touchdowns. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Like they're just scoring all the touchdowns.
Specifically Gus.
His running backs are scoring all the touchdowns. So, if you believe in regression, positive regression may be coming his way.
He hasn't been running much this season either, huh?
He's been running. I mean, maybe not as much,
like
but I think But I still think he's been running enough to be fantasy viable. So I have, a decent amount of teams that are going to be in the tournament with Lamar, and we talked about this earlier, where I'm just, I'm asking myself, man, I need to pick up a backup quarterback because I'm going to have to be questioning whether or not I need to start him.
I got one for you.
But then I started thinking, I'm like, you know what? They're coming off a bye.
Yeah. Okay.
Regression.
I see where you're going.
All the wide receivers are healthy.
Yeah.
Likely has gotten full reps of practice as the starter. Odell's back. They got Keaton Mitchell, which they have not been using in the passing game. And I'm looking at their schedule, and I'm thinking to myself, like, nah, you know what? I'm just going to roll the dice. Lamar's in there week in and week out because we get caught up in this, sort of kind of, this guy has not been producing for 2-3 weeks. We're done with him. Or this guy's not been producing 3 to 4 weeks. He's dead. And in a lot of cases, he is. But in a lot of cases, like, that was just their, down period. If you look across the fantasy board, very, very few players, maybe 2-3 produce on a week in and week out basis at a top level. You got your Tyreek Hills, you got your Christian McCaffreys, maybe you can throw in, 2 or 3 other names in there. But for the most part, most players have multiple down weeks, if not a streak of bad weeks. Dak, who we all love, we forget like how we started the season. I'm sitting here like, I like dig in. So like when everybody was dropping Dak in high stakes leagues, I was like, we had a conversation like, pick up Dak. This is a time to pick up Dak. He's had a tough tough run of schedule. Like the defense has been scoring all the points, but like they have to pass the ball. Like the running game is not
the point that you're making right now. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but remember before the season started, we were talking about what the Cowboys' offense identity wanted to be, and they were talking about everybody was saying they wanted to be a running team, but specifically Abby was like, they want to be a running team, but how are they going to be a running team?
How?
The type of personnel they have, like they have a passing personnel.
Yes.
And I was even saying like, I don't know how to be a running team with Pollard being the main back. He don't have that type of skill set where he's just a grinder. So everything looked like a passing offense. And remember, because that's why I was high on CD. I wanted CD, and then
we messed you up.
Scott Barrett came in, just put water on my CD lamb, and I stopped drafting him. Damn you, Scott. But
I was with him. I was not a believer.
But yeah, I mean, we saw it. And sometimes we probably smarter than what we realized, man. We should have just went all in.
Yeah.
We should have went all in because
we really should have.
I mean, it was easy to see that. I mean, that team, even if they want to be a grinding running team, they just can't. They don't have it.
That was a fault. That was actually like something like I'm taking notes, kind of starting my note process right now in season, projecting for like next season and things I want to adjust and change. And one of them has been like, you cannot be on a quarterback, or you cannot make points as this is going to be a passing offense, and then not find ways to attack the receivers in said offense. Like there's no reason I shouldn't have been overweight on Ferguson, shouldn't have had a decent amount. I mean, I got some CD, but I should have probably been overweight on CD. I should have had Cooks. I should have just spread it around, outside of Gallup for whatever reason, like because he was just
some Gallup.
He was so cheap. And I just felt like maybe coming off the ACL, maybe he was going to do more.
He's the one option that just
He's the one that just like
even
didn't do
Jalen Tolbert
anything.
said, I'm getting some love too. What's up?
Even Turpin.
Man, forget about Turpin. Even Blaine got more fantasy points than Gallup. Man, the defense got more fantasy. So yeah, but that's like definitely one thing that I'm going to adjust for next year. But yeah, getting back to the point, like. Look, he's an elite player. He's healthy. He's still in an offense that scores a lot of points. You can absolutely trust him.
Who are we talking about right now?
Lamar Jackson.
Okay.
So what you got to decide is like, do you want to be ahead of the curve or do you want to wait for the curve? And that's what we do a lot in offenses. Sometimes, you can wait for the curve. Sometimes you can get lucky. You can start a Jake Browning one week, say, you know what? I'm not going to start Lamar this week. And Jake Browning goes off.
I'll never forget this past week with Jake Browning, bro.
And Jake Browning puts up 25 points, and maybe Lamar.
He put up 30.
Yeah, it puts up 30. And then Lamar puts up like, something similar. You're like, okay, Lamar's back. Now I trust him. Yeah. Now I'm ready to get it. But then sometimes, like, you start a Jake Browning, or let's put somebody else's name in there. You start somebody else who you feel like maybe has a better opportunity. And Lamar has that 38-point performance where he rushes for like 100 yards, 2 rushing TDs, 2 passing TDs. I don't know his exact schedule, but I know one of those games is against Miami. Okay, so for me, like, I'm going to be very aggressive, and I'm just going to he's just stuck in my lineup. Cement. He's one of those few players that are going to be cemented in my lineup.
So if you feel that way about Lamar, you have to feel that way about Patrick Mahomes too.
No,
right?
no, I did not. No.
Patrick Mahomes has 6 more fantasy points on the season.
Patrick
than
Mahomes
Lamar.
has not been unlucky. that offense has been bad. The funny thing is, and I'm not going to say that I like really 100% meant this, but there's like a hard way group chat, and like early on, sometimes I just talk shit. I just throw shit. I just throw shit out there because I partly believe it, but I want to see other people's reaction.
Yeah.
And then I also kind of want to test like my I want to test my result. I want to test like how strongly I feel about this tape.
That Boondocks episode where Huey throws the chair in the crowd. Everybody listens to the chair throw, and then they start fighting each other.
I just want to see what's going to happen. I want to see what's going to happen, and I want to test how strongly do I feel about this? Can I like actually make a strong argument?
Yeah.
And so like one of the arguments I made, I was like, I do not see how this Kansas City offense and how Patrick Mahomes are going to be able to sustain without a true running game. And it kind of centered around the idea of them trading for Jonathan Taylor. I was like, they need to trade for Jonathan Taylor, because I was like, if they think that they're going to go into this season and win a championship with Mahomes just being able to sling it to these no-names, I was like, they're out of their damn minds. I was like, it's just not going to happen. Mm-hmm. And granted, they have a great record, but nobody is feeling comfortable about this Patrick
Nobody's scared of
Mahomes
the Chiefs
offense that they're just going to be able to go in and dominate teams, right?
Didn't they just lose this past week?
They did, to Green Bay. And Green Bay's been coming up, so I'm not just saying they didn't like just lose to like just this like garbage team. But that kind of gets to your point. Like, to me, it's not that Patrick Mahomes is just playing bad. It's just that, like, they don't have a lot of great options. Kelsey's getting older. Their defense is been playing solid. They play these teams that like aren't necessarily the greatest or fast paced. So it just hasn't been like a setup for where like they are playing a Miami or they're playing like, a team that like they got to put up a bunch of points. Even when they played Philadelphia, that was really kind of like a juggernaut, like, blow for blow type game. It wasn't until the end where people started putting up fantasy numbers. They seem content with just like taking what the offense, taking what the defense gives them, throwing the short passes, involving Pacheco as much as they can in a run game.
Pacheco has been doing it, man.
And, yeah, but you're not seeing those deep passes. MVS isn't it.
They don't have anybody.
They don't have anybody that can stress the field.
But you said that they didn't have the running game, though. Like, Pacheco has been filling.
He has, like, but he has. Maybe I'm a Pacheco hater, but it would have been a lot better with Jonathan Taylor, a healthy Jonathan Taylor is what I'm saying. Yeah. But you see, like, they are involving him in the passing game. That's how they're winning games. Or
also McKinnon being
helping
hurt
them winning games. Yeah.
So this is kind of off topic. Not really, but kind of off topic. Number one, right? If y'all, for our listeners, before the season, we did a draft with other podcasts. It was the podcast Invitational.
Yeah.
Go District put it together, or player profiler.
Yeah.
I know Deep End was in there, and a few other podcasts was in there. We actually ended up being the number 1 seed in that league.
Yeah.
And we're in the championship right now.
Oh, nice.
And we're actually going against the Go District. You talking like
we're
you
in
don't
the championship
know, you know
now?
all this.
I really don't know all this.
We're going against the Go District.
Oh, really?
In the championship. How do y'all not know this?
Oh, snap. We are, yeah.
We're going against the Go District.
I'm not going to lie. I got so many teams. When I see a joint team, like,
you just know it. We got it.
I literally just ignore it. I'm like, y'all got it.
They got it.
Yeah. And then, like, maybe I'll look at it real quick, just like make sure, because like nothing crazy going on here.
I've been paying very close attention. So
whenever I put something inside the chat, like, it's on this team. Like, when I say, hey, like, we should start this person, and then
we got a couple.
Ignore me. Huh?
We have a couple.
Yeah, but
we
don't
have
have
dynasty.
this one.
But this is the good one.
Okay.
I do be ignoring you. I do be ignoring because I already looked at the team. Like, I already know what's going on. Like, if you want to make changes, like, whatever. But we got the number 1 seed, so we had an automatic bid into the tournament, which is cool. But now we actually might be able to win the league, and the only reason I'm bringing it up because if you go back and watch that episode, we were arguing during that draft. We were arguing about taking Patrick Mahomes.
Oh,
we were arguing about Kelsey. Kelsey was like, no, Tyreek Hill. It was like, wide receiver.
We were arguing about Gallup. We were arguing about
we arguing about a lot of things.
Darren Waller early.
Yeah.
We took like a bunch of running backs, which is something we don't do.
You were like,
and our first
you're like, you want to take Kamara too? I was like, yeah.
Yeah. Our first receiver was Hollywood.
Sutton, we were arguing about. I was like, man, Sutton gonna be trash.
Yeah.
Don't draft Sutton. It's like, we need a wide receiver, bro.
We are set up pretty nicely right now. So it's gonna be interesting how it all plays out. I'm still not comfortable with our wide receiver room, but I mean,
it's so thin.
Yeah, it's thin as hell.
It is.
We need Parker Washington to come through.
Yeah.
And if this team makes a good amount of noise, it'll be fun to go back and look at that draft, that whole episode, and just kind of see how things played out.
Okay, go.
That's the number 1 thing.
Yeah.
By the way, Go District. Watch our back. We coming for y'all. The second thing, Jake Brown, man, I gotta give him his flowers. I gotta because here's the thing, right? So, y'all missed last week's episode. I was saying all the reasons why I was gonna play Jake Brown. I played Jake Brown a lot, like almost stupidly too much. Right?
That's that DFS mindset that will win you weeks.
I was like, my last reason was just primetime hammer, like just being the only game on in town, and just everybody watching gonna feel, kind of level up and say, okay, let's go at it. And he did it. So I had, and this is me talking personally, my team. I had one team where one league or one playoff matchup where I was down by like 60-something points. I had Browning and had Chase. And I literally went into that game that night like, I already lost this one, whatever. Let me just watch a game. I won that game by like 7. Shockingly. And there's another one who's one of our listeners, and me and him were going back and forth on Twitter yesterday, just kind of talking about how I didn't realize it was him. He didn't realize it was me. But I was down by 30. And I won it by 0.25 points.
Oh, yeah. He was sick.
0.25 points. And my only player I had was Browning. Yeah. And he scored like 30.2. And I won by 0.25.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So two matches where I wasn't planning on being in the championship matchup this week. And I'm in that mug. And it's set up pretty nicely for us. So I might win this whole thing. And I owe it all to fucking Jake Browning. Jake Browning. That's crazy. Oh, and I'm not dropping him too. We're going to see what it looks like. Because here's the thing. He's still on that Bengals offense. And you just got T. Higgins back, who didn't look that great on Monday, but he's there. Yeah. Mixon looked good.
Yeah.
Everything
Boyd looks good.
It's almost like he's like a Brock Purdy light. Where he can just get the ball in certain people's hands. Yeah. And as long as, because think about that Jamar Chase pass. It was just, it wasn't that deep, maybe like 20 yards. Chase took it to the house.
Yeah.
You know what? I mean, your argument for Browning, and I don't know that you clearly said this, and maybe it's not important, but
if it's good, I said it.
Yeah, but I 100% agree with you. All he's got to do is get the ball to his playmakers, and guess what? He has a lot of playmakers.
Yes.
He's got Chase, he's got Higgins,
he's got Mixon,
he's got Mixon, he's got even Tyler Boyd. So he has an offense, and the defense is not that great.
Right.
So I think I'm 100% agreement.
And another thing I was mentioning, he can run a little bit. Yeah. And you saw there was one play, it was either in overtime or in the fourth quarter, where he ran like 30 yards.
Yeah.
So it's like he has all of that for him. He can give you. Yeah. And again, I was without Lamar. I was without Josh Allen. It sucks because if I had both those quarterbacks available, I wouldn't have played Browning. And Browning was the #1 scoring quarterback this past week.
Wow.
The funny thing is I had so many leagues where I had I had an Allen or a Lamar or just a quarterback on by Justin Fields maybe. And I didn't have a lot of fab. And I had a lot of teams that were just very smart, cock block. Just well played, sir. Yeah. Well played.
Oh, they were stopping you from getting a quarterback?
I literally had no choice but to go to Jake Browning.
Oh,
that was literally it.
You played him?
I played a lot of Jake Browning.
I
ended up playing a lot of Jake Browning. I did get killed in two leagues in a main event. It wasn't because of Jake Browning. But I ended up losing by 1.5 points in one league and 2 points in another league, and it all came down to just bad roster decisions. But those other teams had Mixon in it, so
usually that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, man. That's why I said kickers and defense matter, man.
Yeah. All right, guys, that's all we got this week. That's our episode.
I have no dynasty players. I have no dynasty players since the end of the season.
You already gave it.
Lock in, man. Yes. This is the money week. This is the money time.
By the way, when we go back and we look at this GO District lineup, when we go back and look at that draft, this is all about in-season management. I just finished looking at the board. The vast majority of those players are no longer on our team.
Yeah, that's
all about in-season.
We don't love them.
We get rid of you real quick.
Please rate.
Drop you on the side of the road and keep driving.
Nah, we ain't loyal.
We're not at all. Peace.
Oh, man.
Why keep you hiding where the sun is dark? It's undefined, want to know where you are. Why keep you hiding where the sun is dark? The sun